Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DraftKings Daily Trot. I am Big Italy 42 here, of course, with Josh Shepardson at Beachhead50, the baseball guru, and we're ready to talk about tonight's slate starting at 7:05 p.m. Here we got 9 games on tap, and it's going to be an exciting one. We've got a game at Coors Field. We've got Clayton Kershaw on the mound, a couple other aces finally coming back around, finally back into the second time through the rotation. So getting rid of all these awful pitchers we had on the mound yesterday, finally, and back to some aces. It's nice.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, this Coors Field plus Clayton Kershaw day, it makes for some interesting pricing at DK, as you'll find out in the podcast.
Yes, it does. And for players like you and I who've been playing for a while, and we know the pricing and the strategies and all these things, it's tough with the pricing, but I actually love it because you can't just blindly stack Coors Field. And like you said, we'll get to that here in a minute, but I actually like it. It gives you a little bit of an edge if you find the actual best spots, not just everyone inside of Coors Field, including the guys in the stands. So,
Yep.
All right, let's start things off with starting pitcher. And obviously, DraftKings, you've got 2 starting pitchers. You're going to have to play a duo. You can go with 2 cheap guys and stack, which I don't recommend because there's not very many cheap guys. Obviously, in a GPP, everything goes, but you're going to want to have at least one of these top guys. Clayton Kershaw being the best of the best, as he is in real life and fantasy. And he's sitting at $12,300, which seems really steep, but you and I were talking about it before the podcast, and there was a pairing that you had mentioned that actually still affords you the ability to play some of these big hitters that you want to get into your lineup. So what's the duo that you're looking at here?
Especially in cash games, I really like the duo of Clayton Kershaw and Doug Fister. Fister costs less than $8,000. So you're looking at $2,100 or 20. Geez, I'm dropping zeros left and right. $20,100 to roster Fister and Kershaw together. That's just $100 less or more than rostering Bumgarner and Hamels together. And obviously, I would take the Kershaw-Fister pairing. Both are bigger betting favorites. You're looking at a win. Kershaw's Kershaw. So that's actually a very affordable option. I mean, if you want to dig a little bit deeper, if you want to go bargain pick with Kershaw, you can go Dylan G. And you're looking at spending just over $19,000 on the pairing and still having some flexibility to spend on hitting.
Yeah, and I really like that Kershaw-Fister because, I mean, it gives you obviously the biggest favorite on the board. Fister also a sizable favorite, both in fine matchups. Obviously, Kershaw not ideal, but the guy's as matchup-proof as anyone comes in any aspect of the world. But, that's a solid pairing because, like you said, I mean, the win is heavily weighted. You get your strikeout upside with Kershaw, the stability with Fister doesn't give up a lot of base runners, doesn't walk guys. So I like that a lot. And if you want to go another contrarian way, is a similar pairing to what Scott and I had talked about on yesterday's podcast. Just play both sides of the San Francisco-San Diego game. Neither offense getting it done right now. We saw last night, went into the 8th inning with no scoring. 2 great pitchers on both sides doing well, and a 6-run total here. So you go ahead and pair Madison Bumgarner and James Shields. Both guys with strikeout upside. Both guys in a fine matchup, obviously, in Petco. And, it's going to be expensive, but maybe you get a win from one, maybe you don't, but you're not expecting a lot of earned runs. Obviously, Vegas isn't either. So if you want to just go with some safety there in a cash game, I don't think that's a bad way to go either.
Yeah, I mean, there's your high floor. And the thing is if you get that W from either of them, I would argue you also have a high ceiling because you're not going to get penalized for the loss. So you got James, hypothetically speaking, let's say Vegas holds true to form and the Giants win tonight. They win, in a 1-0, 2-1 game. You're getting the win from Bumgarner, possibly. You're getting a quality start from James Shields. You're getting some punch-outs. You're getting probably very limited number of base runners, so you're not losing points there. Very high floor, but I would say there's actually a surprisingly decent ceiling there as well. You're not going to get 2 wins, obviously, when you're taking 2 pitchers from opposite sides of a game, but I really like that pairing. You're going to spend less than you're going to spend on Kershaw and Fister together, so it does give you a little bit more lineup flexibility, too. So I do really like that pairing a lot. Really, the only other names that I'm looking at pitcher tonight are Julio Teheran of the Braves. Decent matchup with the Mets. $9,300, probably the most reasonably priced of the top arms. Still not necessarily getting his due as being a top arm, but he can miss some bats. Jared Weaver's a big favorite, and he's only $8,000. A big part of Weaver being a favorite is the fact that he's opposing Jeremy Guthrie. I expect Guthrie to get hammered, so he should get some run support. Weaver, not his peak year self, but at $8,000, you could certainly do worse. And if you want to do like a cheap pitcher pairing, the Weaver Fister duo for $15,800 gives you a lot of roster flexibility for some of the very pricey players at Coors Field.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to touch on it one more time, that pairing two guys together in the same game, really underrated strategy, pays off well in GPPs, especially in Petco, when you got two good pitchers going. So, I mean, get yourself that. Obviously, that second stack that you mentioned, the Fister Weaver, gives you some nice floor, and you can fit some hitters. But either way, let's go ahead and get to some hitters now that we've covered all the pitchers. And DraftKings, like we said, they're getting tough with their pricing. So Miguel Montero, who you can get for cheaper elsewhere, I'll leave names out of it. But Miguel Montero, the most expensive option. We assume he's going to be in the lineup today, and he's going to be one of the better options on the board, of course, being in Coors Field.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Look down that list, and you'll see a few more names from Coors Field. You got backup catcher Willian Rosario checking in the top 5 in pricing. You've got third catcher Wellington Castillo of the Cubs at $4,000. Michael McHenry at $4,000. I mean, they've stiffened their pricing up at Coors a great deal. I also noticed that guys with favorable platoon splits have seen their price go up as well. So at catcher, I mean, I'm not ponying up for Montero most likely. $4,600 is a lot to spend even at Coors Field. So I'm looking at some names like Jason Castro against Giovanni Gallardo. He had a down year last year against right-handed pitching, but was very good the year before. Not the worst price point. Carlos Ruiz, I like it. $3,700 on teams that I'm not using Fister. At the same $3,700 price tag, do not use Yasmani Grandal. That is my warning to you. AJ Ellis most likely to catch Kershaw. We saw him catch him in the opener. So that's my public service announcement to DraftKings users that are watching the podcast today. Travis d'Arnaud, not a great matchup, but he's a good hitter, $3,600. Speaking of AJ Ellis, I think this is probably my preferred punt play of sorts, your really cheap option. AJ Ellis, $3,500. Archie Bradley struggled with his control in the minors. Ellis is a very patient hitter, hitting in front of the pitcher. Most likely hitting in front of the pitcher. Probably not going to see a lot to hit. Might work some walks. And if Bradley struggles, there could be some opportunity for some runs scored there, even down order.
Yeah, absolutely like that call, because the masses will be on the Coors catchers here up top. And yeah, just to put it in even more perspective, Buster Posey, as you know, MVP Buster Posey is the 6th most expensive catcher on a 9-game slate. So that right there tells you DraftKings making it difficult on you, but that's a good thing if you ask me. It makes you actually have to make the right decisions, and I'm a big fan of it actually. So
am I. Give us the edge back.
Yeah, we'll take that edge every day of the week. Moving on now, excuse me, first base, and no surprise here, Anthony Rizzo, $6,300, most expensive option. You can go ahead and play Anthony Rizzo at $6,300 today. I'm going to get some stability at starting pitcher and not have to play Roberto Hernandez. So I'm not going to be able to pay for Anthony Rizzo outside of maybe a Cub stack in a tournament. But really for me, I mean, you want to pick on Kyle Kendrick, even though everyone thinks he's the greatest of all time now with that performance. But it's really tough at $6,300.
Putting that price into perspective, the second priced first baseman is Edwin Encarnacion. He's $800 cheaper. $800 cheaper than Anthony Rizzo. That is asinine. Yeah. If you're going to use a first baseman from that game, $5,300 Justin Morneau is usable. I mean, again, that is a steep price tag, but you got to pay up if you're going to use it Coors today. To put the price in perspective, you got $4,700 Paul Goldschmidt. Obviously, you're not using Goldschmidt against Kershaw unless you have like sadistic tendencies, I guess. But
unless you hate yourself for your money.
Adrian Gonzalez is definitely my preferred play. DraftKings, I'll give them credit. They're good about pricing according to park factors and things that matter. They haven't jumped on Adrian Gonzalez's hot streak. Only $4,600 still. and only that seems like a crazy thing to say for $4,600, but looking at the rest of the pricing, I mean, he's a fairly cheap option. He's the same price as Albert Pujols, and give me Gonzalez against a righty at Chase Field to that. $4,200 Lucas Duda looks okay. I don't love the matchup with Julio Teheran, but it's going to be tough to find matchups that you're really in love with at price points today. So you're going to have to give some back. Eric Hosmer at $4,000 looks pretty good. Jared Weaver struggles with left-handed batters a little bit. Did last year. He's seen his WOBA erode the last few years, so I like him. And then Kendrys Morales at $3,500 I think might be, if I'm using an expensive pitcher pairing, I think Morales is going to be my cheap option. Has had a decent lineup slot with the Royals early, is a switch hitter, hits right-handed pitching better, and he's going to be in the left-handed batter's box facing Weaver, so you get that platoon advantage with him. So I think I like Morales in the bargain bin area.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and especially Lucas Duda, like you mentioned, not a great matchup, but the guy has a lot of power against righties, and I mean, I like his upside today. Not a lot of guys that you can actually afford that have huge upside, and Duda's one of those guys, so he'll be one of my favorite tournament plays, definitely.
Definitely.
All right, moving on here to second base, where we'll just not even tell you. Just look at the top expensive option. He batted in the 9-hole yesterday. Not a guy I'll be paying $5,000 for today, tomorrow, any other day for the rest of my life. So go ahead and move on there from Alcantara. And some other guys you've got, Neil Walker finally priced up. I mean, you mentioned him the other day when he was priced down. Nice cheap play there. But he's at $4,600. You can get him at second or third base. He's a fine play. Scooter Gennett, due to that batting spot, 7th, 8th, he's been right around there. I mean, no way I could pay $4,300 for him outside of a stack. And like you mentioned before, Chase Utley, if you're not playing Fister, in a good spot there at $4,100. And who else you like here at second?
Those are primarily the names that I'm looking at today. Digging deeper, Joe Panic, still $3,200. I mean, the ceiling is always low with him because he doesn't have a lot of power, and the matchup isn't great, but $3,200, I mean, given the prices today, you got to sacrifice somewhere. I'll take a number 2 hitter who makes a lot of contact. For goodness sakes, if he hits a single and manages to come around, or he hits a couple duck snorts that find green, I mean, he pays for himself, and all of a sudden he gives you that type of positional or that price flexibility to actually spend on some of the big players elsewhere. So I think that I'm going to be using a fair amount of Panic, and the nice thing about Panic is he's not the type of home run threat where you say, man, I'm using James Shields. I better not use Joe Panic, because if Panic comes through, means Shields isn't a strong play. No, you can actually play the two of them together, because Panic is a singles-doubles hitter. So him reaching base isn't exactly going to put the dagger in James Shields for you. So kind of an odd thing. I don't usually like to put hitters on rosters where I own the pitcher that they're opposing. But in this case, with a singles-doubles hitter, I'm okay with using Panic. If I use that Bumgarner and James Shields pairing, I'm fine with sticking Panic in that as well to give me some price savings. And hey, I mean, perfect world, he hits double. Maybe he drives in the game-winning run for Madison Bumgarner, and everybody wins.
Yeah, 1-0. We'll take it. Go ahead, get those two pitchers. Get your Joe Panic. One double, 1 run scored. Maybe he steals third. Let's go way out.
There we go.
Yeah, maybe he gets crazy. But either way, I like that call. You're going to have to go cheap somewhere, like we mentioned, and not a lot of cheap options with DraftKings. Definitely stiffening up their pricing. So third base, tie up top with Adrian Beltre and Nolan Arenado at $5,100. So, I mean, if you want to go Beltre, I'm not going to pay $5,100 for him either. But another one of those positions where you're going to need to find yourself a couple guys a little bit cheaper. Neil Walker also eligible here, like we mentioned. Manny Machado, $4,500. Hasn't had a hit yet this year, so he's going to be low owned. He's not in a bad spot here. You've got Josh Donaldson, obviously more power against lefties. Not in a bad spot against a weak righty. And then a guy that you had mentioned before, is first base eligible on FanDuel, but third base and outfield here, Ryan Zimmerman. He's at $4,200. I like him a great deal here.
That's my play at third base in cash games and tournaments. He hammers left-handed pitching. Cole Hamels a good left-handed pitcher, but Zimmerman at $4,200. You're getting a ceiling, a fairly high ceiling for a reasonable price, which is feeling kind of crazy today. Looking a little bit deeper, Mike Moustakas, $3,600. The the Royals are facing right-handed pitchers, so expect him to slot second again probably, which means that $3,600 for a two-hole hitter on the favorable side of the platoon against Jared Weaver, not a bad price point if you're looking to save money somewhere. And then it just kind of starts to get pretty ugly once you get down below that. So those are pretty much the names that I'm looking at. The Zimmerman's my favorite play. I like Moustakas for the cheap side of things. A name that, depending on where he slots, he is also struggling to start this year, but he's been hitting third for his team. Luis Valbuena gets a right-hander today. $4,200, I would prefer Zimmerman at that price point, but if he continues to hit third, he did hit right-handed pitching well last year. Doesn't have a great 3-year split against them, but is above average. So Valbuena, not the worst option. You got to save money somewhere.
Yeah, and he's got an underrated amount of power, so he's got a little bit of pop in his bat too. So I don't mind that call at all. And hey, a big-time discount from DraftKings over here. Troy Tulowitzki, all the way down from $7K to the affordable price of $6,000 today. So, I mean, easier to get him in than it was yesterday. I mean, he had a fine game, not $7,000 fine, but did have a double, couple RBI, and I mean, if you're going to be paying up, obviously it's going to be in a stack. Tulowitzki, much more affordable today at $6K, but it's again coming back to it. I just can't pay for him outside of a stack if you want to have any sort of duo at starting pitcher today.
No, I can't justify it either. Castro's too much to use at Coors Field today. While I liked Reyes' price point at FanDuel, I don't like it here. The names I'm really looking at are Jimmy Rollins for $4,100, leadoff hitter against a rookie pitcher who had some control issues in the minors. Like I said, I love Archie Bradley's long-term outlook, but I also like Taijuan Walker's long-term outlook, and we saw what happened last night. There's a big difference between pitching well at AAA level and succeeding on occasion at the big league level, and pitching well regularly at the big league level. So Bradley's got a little bit of a learning curve, I think. Eric Ibar is really the guy that I like, $3,900. Lineup slot's not as good as Rollins, but he does have that favorable platoon split against Mr. Guthrie, who is absolutely dreadful against left-handed batters. And then digging deeper, we've got Joe Panic down in the still shortstop eligible here, $3,200 price range. Beyond that, it's pretty ugly. Probably not going to be playing much of anyone else in my games. Alcides Escobar at $3,700. As long as he continues to hit leadoff, you'd rather him against the lefty, but you know what? Getting a leadoff hitter at a bad position, $3,700 is at least defensible.
Yeah, completely agree with you there. And just to reiterate about Jeremy Guthrie, worst WOBA against lefties today, probably most days, at 364 last year. So just absolutely gets mashed by left-handed pitching. So get yourself some exposure there. And moving over to the outfield, call me crazy if you want. Call me whatever the hell you want to call me. If I'm paying $6,000 for a hitter today, it is Corey Dickerson, not Troy Tulowitzki. Best hitter in the game. Yes, better than Mike Trout, better than Andrew McCutchen, better than everyone last year against right-handed pitching at home. Corey Dickerson for $6K, my top play of the day. And you're going to notice that, I'm sure you know, most days, Corey Dickerson at home against a righty, yes.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
For $5,700, I like his teammate Carlos Gonzalez. I mean, these are the two guys that I'm looking at. If I'm paying at Coors Field, I'm probably grabbing them as standalones because they have that top shelf power. You don't necessarily need to have them in a stack to get value back for them. So those guys are guys that I like. It's crazy to see Mike Trout priced outside the top 5 in the outfield, but that's the world that we live in with the new pricing at DK. I like it. Jose Bautista, $5,400, like his price point better at FanDuel, not a big fan. Charlie Blackmon, $5,000 is actually a pretty reasonable price for a leadoff hitter at Coors Field. I don't love it, but it's at least usable. Digging down a little bit deeper, $47 for Yasiel Puig is a good price point. Again, Bradley, I think he's going to struggle tonight. Has he type of electric arm where that's not necessarily the case, but he's facing a very formidable offense from the Dodgers, so grabbing their number 2 hitter looks pretty good to me. Cole Calhoun, $4,600. Justin already highlighted the nice WOBA allowed by Jeremy Guthrie.
The very
Got to get
generous
some
one.
got to get some left-handed batters against him. Ryan Zimmerman, outfield eligible, $4,200 looks good. Travis Snyder is a guy that I love. $4,100. Has hit third in the last 3 games, I believe, for the O's. As long as he continues to hit third, or even in the top 5, he hit 5th on opening day. I'll take a piece of Aaron Sanchez, who's another young pitcher, bright future, but has demonstrated some control issues as a starter in the minors. I'll get some Snyder for $4,100 and be pretty happy with that, especially in tournaments. Hasn't really showed the power off yet, but ranked in the top 10 in average fly ball and home run distance last year, according to Baseball Heat Map. So does have big raw power at home. Camden Yards is big for amplifying home run power to lefties. So those are really the top shelf names that I'm looking at. Digging deeper, if you want a good lineup spot at a cheap price, Nori Aoki, $3,500. If you want to slot him in one of your 3 outfield positions so that you can spend on some of these Coors hitters or Clayton Kershaw, you know what? That's okay. Again, like Panic, kind of a slap singles doubles hitter. Not you can even use him with James Shields and not feel too terrible about it, because Aoki can have a 2 singles game and return that $3,500 and not crush your pick of James Shields. So those are really the names that I'm looking at today.
Yeah, and Aoki also, to further that, I mean, got a little bit of speed too. So he every once in a while swipe a bag too. So perfect world for him. Single, stolen base, score a run. I mean, he's going to easily pay off that tag. And like you mentioned,
With Joe Panic's double, I'm thinking. I think that's where.
Yeah, Joe Panic will bring him home. You get that little mini stack of the 0 power. But yeah, like we mentioned, real tough pricing at DraftKings. Not a lot of guys cheaper than that. So you're going to want to take advantage of some of these guys we highlighted. And with that, that's going to wrap things up for us here on the DraftKings Daily Trot. And we will see you guys again for the next podcast. Check out all of our great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.